What's up, guys? Today we are going to be doing the out of the home theater review for Tron Ares on 4K digital streaming. You can, of course, stream this on your favorite streaming platforms such as Google Play, Movies Anywhere, or you can stream it like I am doing on Apple iTunes. Now, before we get into this, let's go over a few tech specs. This movie was shot in 8K. It's got a 4K DI. Runtime is 119 minutes. Aspect ratio is 239:1, so there are no IMAX shots, even though there was an IMAX version at the theaters. We're only getting 239:1, so there are black letterbox bars, and the audio is in Dolby Atmos. Now, if you do not know what the Dolby Atmos object viewer is, there will be a link down below in this video's description that tells you all about it, what it does, and where you can get it. You'll also find a list of all the gear that I use for these 4K reviews down there as well. Now, I did see this movie in IMAX and in the Dolby Cinema, so I've got a pretty good frame of reference of what this movie sounded like in both of those presentations. Now, I will say that watching this back at the house, that this sounded very similar to what I heard in both IMAX and Dolby Cinema. Now, jumping into the Atmos viewer at 1 minute 20 seconds in, we can hear the newscasters' voices moving around the room from front to back, side to side. It'll move overhead, and as you can see in the object viewer, it utilizes just about every single one of my speakers. So right from the start, this is a fully dynamic, object-oriented mix. And this is one of the better mixes, I'm going to say, coming from Disney that I can remember. Now, moving over to another demo at 12 minutes 55 seconds, we of course have to have rain in any one of these big action movies. And there is a brief moment of rain where you'll hear the raindrops hitting the top of the warehouse. It's coming from the top, front, and middle of the room, so you'll hear it very lightly pinging off from above your head, while the rest of the surround kicks in for the lower speakers. It isn't really aggressive rain, but it is just enough to give you some nice light ambiance and give you a sense of how big this warehouse is. Moving over to 19 minutes and 35 seconds, we have a laser that is producing a tree. As it ramps up, you'll hear the lasers shooting beams as it builds, almost like 3D printing this tree. It'll move from either the front stage or the back stage, depending on where the camera is located. It's a really subtle effect, and if you have some really good rear speakers, it kind of moves from the front over to the back. So it sounds really convincing. It's really subtle, but it sounds really good. And also during this scene here, there is a booming techno soundtrack playing in the background. Almost doesn't make sense for this particular scene, but there's techno no matter what is happening in this movie. It's just booming. It could be a scene where you would think would be quiet and somber, but they'll just throw some techno beats over it, and it just goes crazy. Next up at 25 minutes and 33 seconds, we have the first battle with Ares' crew and the NCOM crew. Here you'll see that they have their discs flying around, dismembering the NCOM security team. And then as the scene progresses on, we have Ares entering the NCOM security system, and you can see code, almost Matrix style, falling from above and then eventually just surrounding him, moving from front to back, overhead, in every direction, utilizing every single one of my speakers. It's a very enveloping scene and will cover you in all directions. And of course, there is a ton of bass in this scene as well. Now, for a more peaceful scene, we're going to go over to 33 minutes and 11 seconds. Here we've got Ares kind of combing through some old memories. We can hear different voices in the front stage, while it kind of echoes through the lower surround channels and overhead. So it gives you a really big sense of space. So spatial quality for the scene is really big. It's very wide and it's very immersive as well. Now, up until this point, bass was really good. I wouldn't say that it was IMAX good, but it was more on the level of the Dolby Cinema. So whereas the IMAX was almost 20 dB hot over Dolby Cinema, which it was just absolutely bonkers when I saw it in both IMAX presentations, it was more reserved when I saw it at Dolby Cinema. And for the first half of this movie, this is kind of the presentation that I got watching it at my house on my system. So moving over to 38 minutes, 33 seconds in, this is going to be the highway chase scene that we've seen in the trailers. And up until this point, bass was good. It wasn't over the top and it wasn't IMAX good, but This is where the bass starts really ramping up, and it does start sounding like the presentation that I heard in IMAX. It's not so much that we're getting a lot of bass from the special effects or the effects in general, but the soundtrack from Nine Inch Nails just goes kind of berserk. It goes really heavy and goes really deep in this scene. Now, one of the cool scenes is when they slice the police car in half and the shrapnel and debris flies through the surround channels. And also, again, bass is absolutely booming here. There's also this part where Ares hits the brakes and he slides from the right side of the screen over to the left side. And you can see as it tracks on screen very slowly right across. Spot on panning and movement for this specific scene. And finally, coming in at 1 hour, 28 minutes, we have the first time we see the recognizer make its appearance on screen, which we've all seen in the trailers. And during this last half of the movie, anytime the recognizer is on screen, there is just a tremendous amount of bass. And one of the cool parts is when it's slowly moving past the window, you can just feel your room absolutely vibrate and get pressurized. And there's also a really dynamic aerial battle with planes that are zipping front to back with lights that are just absolutely just moving all around your room. So this is a full-on, really aggressive, dynamic mix from Disney. One of the best I think I've heard in years. And this does not disappoint. Everything from the dynamic movement, object placement, and just the bass response absolutely rocks. And as for video quality, since this was shot in 4K, this does look 4K crispy from start to finish. Whether it's live action stuff or CG stuff, it is just ultra sharp, ultra detailed. The close-ups, you can count every single freckle and strand of hair on everyone's heads, and even the detail on Ares' costume or any one of the Tron characters' costumes, just full of detail, which you can almost reach out and touch. It's so clean and it's so crisp. So they did not add any kind of film emulation that I can tell in this movie, since it does still have that really sharp, crisp edge and does look very digital. And as for the HDR, since I did watch this on iTunes in Dolby Vision and HDR10 on my projector, it did have a max CLL of 688 and a max FALL of 253. So even though this isn't a barn burner, since this movie does have a somewhat darkish color palette, the specular highlights are bright, they're vivid, and they are heavily saturated and do jump off the screen. Black levels looked fantastic with plenty of shadow details intact. I didn't see anything being crushed. I didn't see anything being clipped in highlights. So black levels were well maintained throughout. So overall, this is a great looking 4K digital stream. It's 4K crispy, it's clean, it's detailed, it's got great HDR, the colors pop off the screen. And if you do not like film grain, you are going to love the way that this movie looks. So for a digital stream, I am going to go with a 9.9. Of course, I'm sure once the physical media 4K disc releases, it's going to look even better and will probably be a 10. And as for audio quality, this is probably the best Disney mix that I've heard in I don't know how many years now, even better than the last few Marvel movies, which have been pretty good themselves. But this really does bring it up several notches. I would say that the bass response starts off a little bit slow. I thought it was a little bit weak at the beginning, but then midway through, it really picks up and ramps up and sounded just as good and over the top as what I heard in my IMAX presentation. And this is coming from a digital stream. The detail, of course, the soundstage is really rich. There's a ton of atmospherics, ton of detail and things flying throughout the soundstage all throughout the movie. So again, just a full-on, fully immersive Dolby Atmos mix that hits the marks for detail and for bass response. I am going to go for a digital stream, a 9.9. Again, once this hits 4K Blu-ray, I'm sure it's going to be a 10. So overall, 9.9 for audio and 9.9 for video, which makes this a reference quality, demo-worthy digital stream. Now, if you do want to pick up this movie, this will release on January 6th on 4K Blu-ray. So if you do want to pick that up, I will leave some links for it down below in this video's description. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Tron Ares on 4K digital streaming. Have you seen it, and what was your experience like? How did you like the video and the audio quality? Leave your comment down below and let me know. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you again in the next video.